afternoon, everyone. This is Colleen Berkeley speaking. I am waiting for the slides to come up. Here they are. And we're going to talk through the Software Solutions RFO. This request for offer is Augmenting RFO DIR-TSO-TMP-416, and it is request for offer number DIR-TSO-TMP-449. Can everyone see the slides? Please raise your hands if you can see the slides. All right, I'm seeing some hands go up. All right, Tracy, next slide, please. So we're going to go through the agenda really quickly. We're going to have introductions. I've introduced myself. We'll give you some general information today. We'll talk to you about the Cooperative Contracts Program here at the Department of Information Resources. We will give you information about accessibility. We're going to have our Hub Coordinator, Lynn Hottie, talk to you about the historically underutilized business process and goals for this RFO. I'll talk to you again about the procurement process, including the schedule and evaluations. And finally, at the end, we'll do a recap and closing, which will include question and answers. Next slide, please. So as I said, I'm Colleen Berkeley. I am the Director of Procurement Services here at DIR. I am actually assisting Danya Ramakers. She is a procurement lead for DIR, and this is really her solicitation. I'm also joined by Lynn Hottie, who is the DIR Hub Coordinator, and Jeff Klein is our statewide accessibility coordinator. He was not able to be with us today, but we are going to go through the accessibility requirements for this RFO as part of this presentation. Next slide. Co-op contracts overview. Next. So many of you are probably familiar with the Cooperative Contracts Program here at DIR. For those of you who aren't, I'm going to give you a brief intro. DIR is basically divided into 4 specific program areas. We have policy and planning, shared technology services, the Cooperative Contracts Program, and the bulk purchasing initiatives. The Cooperative Contracts Program is where the majority of our contracts reside. We have well over 700 contracts with vendors to provide goods and services to the state of Texas. Our customers are able to self-serve using these cooperative contracts. They are a fully managed option for the customers if they wish to manage their own work. This is a contrast from the shared technology services side of the house, where those contracts are fully managed by DIR. If you receive a cooperative contract, you will also be eligible to be a part of any bulk purchasing initiatives that DIR runs throughout the year. Bulk purchasing basically leverages the power of the state of Texas, where we negotiate even greater discounts for our customers to go after the goods and services. For example, if they were seeking computers, which everybody's looking for computers and laptops right now, we would be able to negotiate the estimated volume that we would have during the set period for the bulk purchasing initiative. And all customers, regardless if they were buying 1 or 100, would be able to get that same discounted rate that was negotiated under that bulk purchase buy. There is a special website or a page on our website for the bulk purchasing initiative. If you're not familiar with that, you might want to go check it out after this webinar. Next slide, please. So this RFO in particular is for software, including software as a service, products, and related services. These are the types of products and services that we have on cooperative contracts on this slide. And I've highlighted here in yellow for you the types of products and services that would be eligible to go under this software, including SaaS products RFO that we have now. So it's not just software. You might have accessibility products that are also software or SaaS products. You might have security products that fit underneath here, or classroom interactive products, disaster recovery products. You do not have to limit yourself to a specific category. If you fit the request for offer requirements and you are offering software or SaaS products, you're eligible to bid on this initiative. Next slide. We also have tons of cooperative contract service contracts. So this slide is just to give you an idea of the types of service contracts that we do offer under the Cooperative Contracts Program. For this RFO, we really are focusing on services related to the specific software offerings that you may be providing with your bid response. Next slide. Oh, Tracy, next slide. So let me give you some general information for the program. Next, please. Again, I'm Colleen Berkeley. I am the official point of contact for all inquiries regarding this RFO. So that means if you have questions, as much as you may love your current contract managers, you're going to have to send those questions to me regarding this specific request for offer. This is one of those requirements that DIR tries to strictly adhere to, and it is one that has a may be disqualified component to it. Next slide, please. When you're asking questions, please make sure that you reference either the specific page number or the RFO section number so that we can easily find and address your question. You, as a webinar participant, are able to submit questions electronically anytime during the webinar today. So please just use that question tab and submit those questions into us, and we will start answering them towards the end of the presentation. I want to remind you that any questions that we answer today are not considered official until we do post them on the Electronic State Business Daily in the form of an addendum. And if you haven't checked, there should be an addendum out there, Addendum 4, which does include answers to many questions received before today. It is your responsibility to check the Electronic State Business Daily often for updates. If you're surprised that there are 4 addendums out there, it tells me you haven't been checking the ESBD. We are trying to use the ESBD to communicate with you all as quickly as we can. So do check there, as well as the DIR Current Contracting Initiatives page, where we will post the links to those different updates. After this webinar, all questions regarding this RFO must be submitted in writing, and we will correct this slide. It is not to the Bid Stamp Vendor Information Portal. It is to me, Colleen Berkeley, via email by April 17th, 2020 at 2:00 p.m. And if it looks like we are getting a lot of questions that we are unable to answer, or there's a huge rush of questions towards the end, we may end up extending the question deadline to make sure that we do have adequate time to address all of the questions you all identify. Next slide, please. We are accepting electronic responses for this initiative. Any vendor responding to this RFO must use the Bid Stamp Vendor Information System, or the VIS, to submit your response. Excuse me. Before a user can submit to the Bid Stamp VIS, you have to create a login. If you haven't done this before, you're a new vendor to DIR, please do this well in advance of submitting your response. It can take up to 48 hours from the time you request an account for your account to actually be created. And I would hate for you to miss deadlines because you did not do this soon enough. There is a link on the DIR website to give you training on the VIS portal as well. So please do review those materials. Next slide. So this slide is walking you through the vendor submission process. So after you've enabled your account, you'll be able to submit and manage all of your RFO responses from this portal. The training guide, as I said, is on the DIR website, and this gives you a nice screen view of what that screen looks like when you've successfully created your account. Next slide, please, Tracy. So let's talk about the software, SaaS, and related services. So the purpose of this RFO is to establish software solutions, SaaS solutions, and the related services for products that the DIR customers are looking for. This RFO also accepts responses to augment a currently active contract from the last software solutions RFO, which was DIR-TSO-TMP-416. I'm going to take a sip of water before I start coughing. Sorry about that. So if you have an existing contract that you received from DIR under 416 or under an earlier solicitation, you are eligible to augment those contracts through this. If you do not have an existing contract, this is a new opportunity for you to receive a contract. We'll walk through the different response requirements based on the category of vendor that you are. Next slide, please. So we are looking for commercially available off-the-shelf software products. Those are COTS products. And you can reference page 6 of the RFO package if you want to see the different types of software. This is not an exhaustive list. If you are offering something that is not listed on that list, but it is software or a SaaS product, you are still eligible to bid. I want to make sure everyone understands that list was just a list that we compiled at the point in time, but any software or SaaS product is eligible underneath this RFO. Next, please. Vendors have to be able to conduct business in the state of Texas. So you have to have the ability to pay taxes within Texas. You have to have a viable company. You can't be on any of the naughty lists, and we'll walk through what those naughty lists are. They're also listed in the RFO. Next slide, please. You have to either be a manufacturer or publisher for the software brand that you're proposing, or you have to be an authorized reseller for the manufacturer or publisher. For us to know that you are authorized, that means that you have got to provide those letters of authorization. Those are required under this bid. Failure to provide those letters means that your software or SaaS product that you are proposing will not be considered for an award. So it is critical at the time that you submit your responses that you have all paperwork completed and included with your response. Federal requirements. You cannot be listed under the federal divestment statute, and you have to be in good standing with the comptroller systems. With the System for Award Management. You cannot be on the Texas Comptroller's Debarred Vendors list, and you have to be in good standing with the Texas State Comptroller. Next slide, please. EIR accessibility. Next. Now pretend I am Jeff Klein, who knows all about accessibility. I know enough about accessibility to talk about it with you. You are required as vendors to submit accessibility-related paperwork with each product that you are proposing. We expect to see a voluntary product accessibility template, or a VPAT, for all COTS products that contain any user interfaces. So if your product is going to be used by someone sitting at a screen, we expect to see a VPAT. We also would like to see policy-driven adoption for accessibility paperwork completed. This is required for all responding vendor companies only. We don't need it from the manufacturers. The VPAS, if you are a reseller and you are working with a manufacturer who's given you the authorization to provide this, should be completed by the manufacturer. Do not try to complete this form yourself. The manufacturer knows the information and will be able to complete it, which means if there are products that you are trying to get from a manufacturer, you need to start doing this now, well in advance of when the responses are due, so that you have all compliant paperwork ready at the time of the bid. Next slide, please. I'm going to turn it over to Lynn Hottie to talk to you about the historically underutilized business requirements.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. We're going to talk about the hub subcontracting plan for your response. If you submit a response to this RFO, you are legally required to complete a hub subcontracting plan in that submission. Failure to do so, failure to submit a completed plan will result in your bid being rejected. So it's not a I might do it, it's a you will do it kind of a checklist item for you. The State of Texas Hub program is a good faith effort program. So that means you will tell us how you will best fulfill this contract, and you will complete a corresponding good faith effort method on the hub subcontracting plan. Next slide. So the goal for this RFO is 21.1%. If you plan to meet or exceed that goal utilizing hub subcontractors, you will complete sections 1, 2, 4, and attachment A, method A. You will identify your subcontractors, both hub and non-hub, that you will be utilizing for this. Please include their VID numbers. We need those to verify their hub status. Please include all estimated dollar amounts and percentages for each vendor. Your totals from section 2 should equate to your totals in your method A, attachment A. 2 plus 2 is always 4, so make sure your math adds up. Next slide. If you plan on subcontracting, but you're not going to be able to meet that hub goal of 21.1%, you will complete method B. That means you will complete sections 1, 2, 4, and method B, attachment B. In completing this method, you're going to be required to solicit a minimum of 3 certified hub vendors and 2 minority trade organizations. You must allow them at least 7 working days to respond to your notice. That does not include Saturdays and Sundays. You can attach your method of outreach to them if you submitted emails to them, fax logs, however you notified those vendors, you can include that in your submission. But you must, again, identify VID numbers, percentages, and estimated dollar amounts for each of those vendors you intend on utilizing. Next slide. If you're not going to be subcontracting, you will be self-performing. So you will complete sections 1, 2, 3, and 4. In section 3, you will provide your self-performance justification, how your company plans on fulfilling this contract with your own employees and your own resources. Do not tell us that should you be awarded this contract, you will look for subcontracting opportunities, or that should things change in the future, you will subcontract some of this out. What we want to know is how you plan on self-performing this contract at this point in time. So make sure everything is signed and dated. You can see here that we are asking for 2 completed hub subcontracting plan USB drives. The drives must be submitted and clearly marked as completed hub subcontracting plans. Next slide. If you would like, we will provide you a complimentary review of your hub subcontracting plan. Please allow us at least 10 working days before that RFO is due. That gives us enough time to review that for you, and should you need to go back and make any corrections or do any additional outreach, you have given yourself enough time. But you can email that to myself or the DIR Hub email box, and we'd be happy to do the review for you prior to your submission. Okay, thank you. Next slide. Colleen.
Hi, it's me again. Now we're going to talk about the procurement process, including the schedule, the responses, and the evaluations. Next slide, please. So I said this at the beginning. I'm going to remind you again. Vendors and all vendor representatives shall not attempt to discuss the contents of this RFO with any employees or representatives of DIR. That means to communicate with us, you need to go through the DIR point of contact, which is me. Failure to observe this restriction may result in a disqualification of any related response. This is an easy one to avoid, guys. I'm sure you've got relationships with lots of people at DIR. Just make sure you funnel any questions, any comments, anything about this RFO through me first. Thank you. Next slide. So the schedule. We posted this RFO on March 10th. We are now handling the pre-proposal conference. It's March 30th. Question and answer period has been active since March 10th. We expect this to go through April 17th. We're not seeing a ton of questions come in, which is great. That means that the RFO is pretty clear. Expect to check the ESBD throughout this time period for any addendums. We will have an addendum sometime this week following this presentation where more questions will be answered. On April 30th at 2:00 p.m., you must have your responses completely submitted, and you have to hit the submit button in the BidStamp VIS. That is the deadline. We will not look at any responses received after 2:00 p.m. on April 30th. We expect to finish evaluations within the month of May and begin awarding contracts in the month of June. This is one that I know for those of you who've done business with DIR before, it seems like this is an aggressive timeline to have 6 months to be done with negotiations. We will get it done together. We will get it done. And we anticipate actually taking less time, but I'm trying to give myself some cushion and say we may take up to 6 months to get these contracts awarded and executed. One thing that you can do to make it quicker for everyone is to limit or eliminate any exceptions to the terms and conditions in your response. Contract awards always go a lot more quickly if we are not negotiating with attorneys to change words within the terms and conditions. And if you do take exceptions to terms and conditions in any area that is marked in red that says no exceptions, your response will be automatically disqualified. So please be mindful of that. Next slide. So your response documentation, make sure that you have read the RFO. That's all of the documents associated with it, not just the document labeled request for offer. Make sure that you review the response instructions. Make yourself a checklist. We have provided one, or you can make your own, whichever works for you, to make sure that you don't have any missing elements. Determine if your company product line meets the scope of the RFO. It's pretty clear this is software and SaaS products. If that is what you're looking to propose, this is the right RFO for you. Begin uploading your files to BidStamp as soon as you can, just to make sure that you're not running the risk of missing a deadline. Create dividers through the name conventions. Make sure your files are accessible, and make sure that you're providing all of the relevant information. Here I'm going to pause and let you know that relevant information for us also includes multiple points of contact. We have seen time and time again where only a single point of contact is given, and that person disappears somewhere into the hinterlands. And by the time we touch the RFO again to contact the vendor to say, hey, we're ready to negotiate, we're ready to award, that point of contact that was provided in the bid is no longer there. So make sure that you're giving us someone that you are fairly confident is going to be there for a while, at least 6 months, and make sure there's a backup in case during that 6 months somebody goes on maternity leave, or there's a COVID crisis, or something happens. I would hate for you to miss an opportunity because we could not contact you. Make sure that you check twice. You don't want to waste your time on this. Make sure your organization is there. You've got all of your documents. Everything needs to be signed. You've included your pricing and your discount, and you've loaded everything that you need to for DIR to evaluate your response. Some documents may be just requiring a clarification where DIR has to contact you and say, hey, we don't see X, Y, Z. Some documents are required upfront, and failure to provide them will cause your response to be disqualified. So make sure you get everything in there when you submit. Next slide, please. I'm not going to read through this slide for you. You will have it. So make sure that you review this slide as you're preparing it. Things that you need to watch out for, kind of the highlights of this slide. Make sure that you're giving us PDF, Word, or Excel documents. When you're naming your files, don't use characters. And make sure your file names are not too long. Sometimes when we load them into our system, the names are so long that we're unable to open the documents. It helps to give your company a three-letter acronym and use that consistently throughout on each of your different documents. That way you can keep from going too long on your names. Next slide, please. Evaluation criteria. This is published in the RFO in section 4.2.1, pass-fail criteria. These are the things that we are going to look at and make a determination if your company either passes or fails. The first is your financial information. This is conducted by our Chief Financial Office, and we are looking to make sure that your company is not likely to go out of business during the term of the contract. We do this primarily through checking the Dun & Bradstreet reports to determine the company's financial viability. You must complete and sign your hub subcontracting plan. That is a pass-fail criteria. Please take advantage of Lynn's offer to do a courtesy review for you. It will make it so much easier for you all. This is one requirement that there is very little that we can do if you fail to make a good faith effort and you do not provide compliant documents. The next pass-fail requirement is your rating within the comptroller's vendor performance tracking system. A score of less than a C or a legacy unsatisfactory in the vendor performance system, or having a corrective action plan, or having purchase orders that have been canceled in the previous 12 months for non-performance may lead to a failing grade. Next slide. In addition to the pass-fail criteria, we will also be looking at the following. These are listed in the order of importance. That means the one on the top is the most important to DIR, and the one on the bottom has less weight or is the least important to DIR in the overall evaluation of your response. So pricing, bid package 2. We're also going to be looking at your answers to the questionnaire listed in bid package 7. Your plan for supporting the contract in Exhibit C. That's how you're going to grow sales under this contract, what you're going to do to ensure that you are successful as a DIR contract holder. And finally, your history and experience in providing the products and services requested. That's Exhibit B of Bid Package 1. Next slide. This qualification. So these are the big no-nos. I have very little power in my position as the director to help you if you fail to do any of these things. You must submit on or before the due date and time. You must sign the executed offer form. That's basically what makes your offer valid to the state. You have to complete your financial information, and it has to pass. You have to be a financially viable company. If you have disclosed canceled contracts that you do not disclose and we uncover them in the course of our research, that could cause your company to fail. And if you do not sign your hub subcontracting plan, that's also a pass-fail requirement. Here, for vendors who are augmenting, you do not have to resubmit a whole new hub subcontracting plan. However, you may update your existing HSP through this procurement effort. Next slide. Legal considerations. So I mentioned it a little bit before. When we look at these contracts, we are looking to see how compliant you are with the standard terms and conditions as we outline them in the RFO, in the sample contracts document. Taking excessive exceptions to the terms of the contract is one of the red flags that the state has in determining who is going to get a contract. Be mindful of the exceptions that you do take. Realize that the more exceptions that you take, the longer it is going to take for us to reach a contract with your firm, and we will not be extending the duration of the contract because it took us longer to negotiate with your company. All of these contracts are going to co-terminate. So if I award a contract in July of 2020, and it's a 4-year contract, all of the contracts are going to end August 31st of 2024. If it takes you until 2022 to come to terms with the state, your contract will only be 2 years. I hope that's clear. Next slide, please. Oh, good. We're getting to the recap. I need some water to help here. So we will be issuing an addendum after this webinar, not immediately today, but sometime this week. It'll have these materials. We've already posted them in advance. There will be the one edit that we're going to make to the slides. We'll include the attendee list, and we will include an updated question and answer document with any questions that we have pending right now. So if you have any questions, you may feel free to start submitting them through the question window. All right, and Lynn, you said you wanted to make a comment. Go for it.
Yes, previously in the hub slides, I had mentioned that your HSPs were due on USBs. They are, in fact, not due on USBs, but you will be submitting all of your documents through BidStamp, as Colleen instructed. If you have problems with your hub subcontracting plan form, you will fill it out online in BidStamp. You will then print it off, sign it, date it, scan it, and upload it to your documents. If you have an issue with any of that, contact us so we can assist you with that.
Thank you. And all hub questions need to be directed specifically to Lynn Hottie. Her email is on this slide, or to, is it DIR Hub mailbox, Lynn?
At dir.hub@dir.texas.gov.
Thank you. Any other questions, inquiries, etc. should be sent to me. My email address is available here. As a reminder, your deadline for submitting questions is April 17th at 2:00 p.m. Any answers to the questions that we give today will be posted and become final and binding once they are in an addendum on the ESBD. It is your responsibility to check the ESBD regularly. And as your final reminder, responses are due at 2 p.m. on April 30th.